It is 6:30 and we're going to get started. This is the meeting of Charter and Rules. It is Monday, October 21st, 2024. It is 6:30. My name is Meg McGrath-Smith. I am the chair of Council and Rules. To my left in chambers is Councilor Murphy-ROMBOLETTI, also our City Council President. And on Zoom from the Charter and Rules Subcommittee is also Councilor Linda Vacan. And in chambers, we also have Councilors JOURDAIN and Carmen Ocasio. So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, whether you are here virtually or in chambers. Oh, and a thank you. I also see Councilor DEVINE on Zoom as well. Okay. I just want to name a couple logistics. Our meeting here is taking place at Holyoke City Hall, and anyone is always welcome to come down from the public and watch from the seats in here. Or you can access this meeting online through the Spanish interpretation on local access channel 15 using the television's SAP option. It's live streaming on the city website, and there's also a Zoom feed which you can access to by clicking on the interpretation option and choosing Spanish there. So lots of ways to get involved if you want to. Welcome all. Okay, so for the motion to take, I need a motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting will be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there's an objection.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And that is so that we can have this hybrid meeting here where one of our members is on Zoom. Okay, let's just dive in. I'd entertain a motion to take up item 1.
Motion to take up item 1 and approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, and this is item 1, minutes of September 16th, 2024 meeting.
I didn't see those on my email, though. Do you have them on the table?
We have the, yeah, I was going to say I didn't get anything emailed, but I didn't know if I missed it. I mean,
Oh,
we can,
Do we want to table the minutes so that we can review
Yeah.
them for the next meeting?
I think so. Counselor Vacan.
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate that. And if Jeffrey could email me the minutes, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you. If Jeffrey, if you could email those back out to the subcommittee.
Yeah,
I know
my
you sort of-
apologies. I just realized the materials email is still in my draft folder. I sent out the
It
other.
happens to the best of us.
No worries. Okay. So I know we informally said it, but can we formally make a motion?
Yes, so I would amend my motion and make a motion to table the minutes of the September 16th meeting so that we can have time to review them.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Item 2. This is from 2624 from DEVINE and Israel Rivera. Ordered under City Council rules, please add the following new rule. Every 2 years after being sworn in, the City Council President shall set the seating arrangements of the City Council. Consideration shall be taken for any legitimate handicap preference. This was initially taken up and tabled on 9/16. As part of that conversation,
Do you want me to make a motion that we take this off?
that's,
Take up item 2.
Second.
I was just gonna roll right in.
I know, you were on a roll. I didn't want to
Had the energy behind me.
I get it.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so in this tabled 916, the body, a number of city councilors were there, and a number of folks mentioned that they would like us to consider a different rule than the language originally drafted, to include this concept instead of it being randomized. And so the rule change you have in front of you tonight is based on that requirement or that request coming from the folks who weighed in at the 916 meeting. So just to reiterate, the original 1D said the seats of the city council shall be numbered and no member shall change their seat but by permission of the president. The revised 1D, as it currently stands, is the following. Every 2 years following the swearing in of the city council, the seating arrangements for all members shall be determined by a random drawing of names. The drawing shall be run by the city clerk, who will begin with the seat immediately to the right of the city council president's desk and proceed in order until all seats are filled. Prior to the random drawing, any counselor with legitimate handicap or accessibility needs may submit a request for seating preference. The city council president shall assign such counselors to seats that accommodate their needs. Under discussion. Yes, Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Well, so at the last meeting, I did promise that I would look into what Springfield has. So I found the language. It's similar. I think theirs is like one sentence though. It's just that the seats of the city council shall be numbered and determined by lot annually, and no member shall change his or her seat except by permission of the president. So I wanted to follow up and provide that rule that it is random. And I was also just remembering that it does say that the seats should be numbered, and we don't have numbers, so maybe that's just a simple kind of step that we could take over the remaining of our term, if that's a rule folks are comfortable with. And then it could be, you just pull the names. Like, I think that makes sense. The only thing I could see as being confusing is like, which is the right? Is it looking from the podium?
Stage
now I'm
right.
thinking of everything, every single thing that could come up. So is it, like stage right? Is it,
Okay.
so that's the only thing I was like, I don't know if we want to clarify that a little bit more.
Okay.
Let's-
Thank you. Okay, I also see Councilor Bacon and then Councilor Devine. Thank you, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So I had one thought relative to the numbering of the seats, and that is if the names were picked randomly and the person could just choose their seat, then we wouldn't have to worry about numbers.
I'm so sorry. Can you say that one more time? I'm trying to follow it.
So if we're going with the concept of randomly drawing the names out of a hat, then if we want to avoid the numbering issue, then when the person's name is picked out of the hat, the person can choose their seat so they could choose any seat, and we wouldn't have to worry about numbers.
Okay. Councilor Devine?
Yep. Hi. I like the revised ID. I don't think it would be, I think we may get into a situation if we don't, if we let people do it by their names. I think that random drawing with the numbers, I think works fine. I like the revised ID or 1D. And that way we don't get into any arguments like we did the last time. I think that the new revised language works perfectly fine, and I'm in favor of that. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon, is your hand again, or is it just still up?
Well, I do have a second thought. And I'm wondering if the committee would think it would be worthwhile to leave in the language that if at some point during the term, a counselor sought to either trade seats with somebody or sought a seat change, that the president may allow a seat change during the term.
So adding language around if people could request a seat change.
Right. I mean, something might come up for somebody and they might have a reason to need a seat change. I'm thinking once in the term, not as like a regular occurrence, but that there be some language to allow for the president to do that, should it be indicated. But I don't have a strong feeling on it. It's just that there appears to be that language in Springfield, and it leaves a little room for adjustment if needed.
Okay. Councilor Jourdain and then Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Okay. Just a couple thoughts here. And I like the direction we're going in. I would just give a couple things. One is just to make it smooth. I think we should deal with the handicap and or accessibility issue first. So for example, the thing I'm thinking of is somebody gets assigned seat 1, right? And then it turns out that's the seat that somebody needs for accessibility and handicap. Now that person's got to move, and it's going to have a domino effect to everybody else. So I think we should say something right off the get-go that says anybody who's seeking consideration should go to the council president that says they have a handicap or accessibility need, and then The president should just assign that person whatever seat they need to have, period.
You don't think that 1D, the last two sentences, gets at that? It says, prior to the random drawing, any counselor with legitimate handicap or accessibility needs may submit a request for seating preference, and the city council president shall assign such counselors the seats that accommodates their needs. We could name that.
We should that's great language.
Do you think
But
prior-
it shouldn't be at the end, it should be at the beginning, because you should do that first, so then people know what's available.
I think it will be done first, because it says prior to the random drawing. It was just only because it was kind of an addendum to the rule itself that it was second, because if you have it first, it just makes it unclear what drawing you're talking about, because you haven't defined the drawing yet.
Okay.
So that's why I had it second. But yes, it's saying prior to the random drawing,
You'll state it, which is good.
it definitely has to happen first before any other seats are drawn.
So maybe we just say that second part, which says in the next sentence, city council shall, prior to any other seating, assign such counselors to seats that accommodate their needs, type of thing.
So
Maybe
you
we
think
just put
prior
it-
to the random drawing or any seating?
No, I like that sentence. Prior to any to the random drawing, any counselor, you're raising your concern. I think maybe we put this towards the beginning, but then the next sentence should say the city council president, prior to any other seating, shall assign such counselors, with an identified need to accommodate, to their seats, that type of thing. It just sort of, it's like, the way it reads is explain my need, and then it's unclear like where in the process the assigning of the people with those needs are. I just think it could be, I think that's what you mean, but just to make it just a tad bit more clear, that's all.
If we added just simply the word "and" before the city council president, it would make clear that both of those clauses have to occur prior to the random drawing.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so we do that, we help the people that have a particular need. Then in terms of the random, I don't have a problem with that per se. I would ask, there's two ways of doing it. On one respect, I kind of feel like it should be in the ideal. I don't know if this is the mood of the council, but in my opinion, seniority, the seating should be random by seniority. So the most senior member goes first, second most. Then if like, for example, you get say we get 3 new counselors come in, so they all have equal seniority, then those would pull out of a hat type of thing. And then one gets 1, 2, 3, pick. But let's just say that's one option, to do it by seniority, that they get to just pick. And everything starts fresh, just like you're saying here. There is no carryover of your seat from the prior term, automatic at least. Or the other option is that instead of starting at the seat to the right or the left or any of that we just have a drawing. And just like you're saying here, you pull names out of a hat, and then you get to pick any of the remaining, whatever number. Obviously, there's going to be the handicap sign. If somebody has a seat, that's already gone. No one's going to sit at the president's rostrum. So any of the other seats, it's just, you just pick. It could be, and however you want to do the random. And then I think it gives people the option to be, okay, hey, I won the lottery or whatever. I'm towards the beginning. I get to pick, okay, I want that seat. Then the next person pulls their name out, and then they get to pick that seat. And then it just kind of goes that way. As opposed to being this chair, that chair, this chair, that chair, this chair. That seems a little too regimented. I think there should be either by seniority or totally random, in the signing of the seats. And this way, I think you're going to have less complaints that way, other than the people who get the last couple chairs. And then at that point, oh, well, get them next time. You just didn't win the lottery. As opposed to, I don't even know necessarily, if you don't want one of these corner seats or these seats, that may not necessarily be something you even want to win, right? I just think it gives the people a little bit more say as to their seats. I personally, again, like the option one about the seniority, in that it's one of the few perks you get for having seniority here. I mean, if you're here for 20 years and you get first dibs on what the chairs are, or at least a pick to the chairs, great. And maybe next term you want to be over there, and because some people like to move around, they have, and they just like, you know, different perspective. And it's also going to help if there's any concern about people sitting in groups and all of this. It doesn't necessarily work out that way, because it's still, you could have a senior member who wants to be here, and then the next person could be whatever, and they go next to that person. You know, I think it kind of works out better that way. So I think the only time you're going to have an issue there is if people have same amount of seniority. Then you got to do, where it's just, then you do just, you know, random.
Okay. I see Councilor Devine's hands up, but I think you had wanted to speak too, right, Councilor Murphy-Romboletti? Okay, so Councilor Devine and then Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Yeah, hi. A couple of things. How do we define seniority? Is it straight seniority with no breaks in service? And the other thing is, I'm not sure which committee it was. It could have been finance, it could have been public safety, but we had Carl from the DPW in and another gentleman about rearranging our seats. So that may present a problem as well, because I think we still have to figure that out. But I just kind of like I don't know why we're making such a big deal out of this. It seems pretty straightforward. The language that's revised, again, seems okay to me. And again, the seniority, I'd like that defined, because people may have a lot of years of service, but they had breaks in those services. So that's another thing I'd like to look at if you're going to talk seniority. Thanks.
Thank you. And just to clarify, because I think we do have one of those answers, Councilor Devine, when we earlier this year asked for an opinion from the legal department, they clarified that seniority was based on the total number of years, and that it didn't matter, you know, if there were breaks in between years, because someone might be elected and then, you know, not run for a term or two and then return to council. So they said it was total number of years. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
So I guess just for what it's worth, and the main reason why after seeing this order, wanted to suggest the way that Springfield does it, I believe that just going with what our rules actually already say, that the seats are supposed to be assigned, if we have the seats are numbered and then keeping it random, I would prefer that personally. I understand that seniority comes with perks, I guess, but I don't. I just feel like keeping it random and simple with having the things numbered is just the best way to ensure that there's no drama, and that's all I'm looking for. So those are just my thoughts on that. But I also thought that the changes, just moving that stuff up, made a lot of sense. So that's it.
So I think we've heard different ideas tonight. I think that we should vote on it and bring it to council to have a conversation there and hopefully just move this forward. It's come up a number of times in different ways. I'd like us to find a way forward where we can resolve it. I'm not, I totally hear what you're saying, Councilor Jourdain, about seniority and wanting to respect the people who have put in their time and their blood and toil for our city over the years. And I think I'm trying to weigh that in my own mind around wanting it to feel fully random in order for it to be unbiased. And that way there is no sense of someone being treated not fairly, regardless of who the president is. I mean, even in this, we took out the president as the person doing the drawing, right? It's the clerk, right? It's this assumption that, like, this should be a thing that's not political.
Yep.
And I appreciate that, because I think that is a good way to launch We Are a Council together, versus immediately these fiefdoms being kind of held onto and people feeling like they're, being treated unfairly. I don't want a council to have to start that way again. I do think that we should take Councillor Jourdain's feedback and add the word "and" between the last two sentences. So it's clear that the council president needs to assign handicap accessible seats prior to the drawing.
How about if we did a compromise of not seniority, but instead of it, this chair, this chair, this chair, this chair around the horn, we just have a random, like Springfield has, they just have a random drawing and you pick which seat you want.
I think it's by lot. Those chairs are numbered, and so like Divine would pull a number. Oh, I'm chair 8. You would pull a number. You're chair 3.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna do it that way is what you're proposing, because what this says here is we're gonna start over there and go bing, 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 and start filling the chairs.
It doesn't matter to me which form we do it in, if it's just a name that we're pulling and we're going around, or if it's, each person pulls a thing and that number is where they sit. I think both are very random ways of doing it. And I hear your idea about could we almost do a randomization through seniority? But I do think that could still open the door to issues where someone could feel like, well, I wanted that seat when you took it. Do I think someone would do that? Do I think that could happen? I don't know. Sometimes yes. I look at that and think, could someone do that? So some of it is just trying to help us be our best selves by making it as random and neutral as possible.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is whatever context you're in, every other legislative body in America operates off of seniority. Okay, you think the seats are picked at random on the Massachusetts House of Representatives? I don't think so. You go to the United States Senate, they're not picked by random. This is all based on seniority in those systems. But your point, whatever. I mean, at a certain point, I kind of like the idea of if we're going to have a lottery, then just let the people pick whatever one they want at that point. But, even our own employees, right? I mean, if I've been here as a cop for 25 years and I want week number such and such in July for my vacation, I get preference over the guy that started last week, right? I mean, this happens every day in every job in America. So, because people value seniority, it means something, right? It means it's some form of recognition that there's a respect there, that you've been here doing this for all these years, and, it's just that type of thing. And, and I guess informally, that's kind of how it used to operate. But not really, because how the old system, apparently we didn't write it well enough in the rule, was, I guess never was an issue until it became an issue, was whenever somebody left, there was X number of open seats, and the president would just simply say, you go there, and you go there, and you go there, and you go there, and that's it. Unless I wanted to move and a seat opened up. I didn't have a right, even if someone was junior to me, I didn't have a right to take their seat, because that was just the way it was. New ways of doing things, that's fine. I'm just putting the whole little seniority argument out there for something for you to consider. That's one way to allow the people to pick and whatnot. But so what you're suggesting is we're going to do it random, and it's going to be like, this is seat 8. If you pull 8, then you go into that seat.
We could write it to say that and say it's going to be numbers, that seats will be numbered, and people will draw their number by lot. What this says is that we'll put all of our names into a hat.
Okay.
And that the clerk will, from the right seat, will then, this counselor here, and go seat by seat until they're all assigned. Yes, Counselor Murphy-Romboletti.
I hadn't thought about Counselor Devine's point on just in the future, at some point in our lives, perhaps this will change. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, pulling it, the seats will be numbered and drawn by a lot. That's something that you wouldn't have to update again if all of a sudden we're not sitting this way. That was the only thing I just wanted to add after hearing Counselor Devine.
So would that sound like, would you want to make a motion to amend it? So the drawing shall be run by the city clerk. Seats will be numbered and counselors will receive their seats by lot.
You could take out that middle, who will begin with the seat immediately to the right of the council president's desk.
Remove to everything until, and proceed in order until all seats are filled.
Yeah.
Yep. So delete the next phrase too, Jeffrey. And so then it would say, the drawing shall be run by the city clerk, period, seats will be numbered, and counselors will receive their seats by lot. Yes? Does that language make sense?
I think so. I mean,
By lottery.
yeah, by lot, by lottery. I stole by lot from Springfield, so I can't take any credit.
Can you repeat that? The sheet shall be numbered and
Counselors will receive their seats by lot. And then add, yes, you already did that. Good. You added the and in the last two sentences. Okay. Does that satisfy Councillor Devine?
Thing. I definitely like this, this language. I think if we put anything in, first of all, we don't know who's going to be a city councilor every 2 years. Second, if you start putting in seniority, you may have 5 people with the exact same seniority. That's why I think it's easier to not have seniority whatsoever. And I think the way you just straightened out the language helps a lot. So that would be my preference, is just to keep that language, the revision that you're just making, and keep seniority out of it, only because, one, we don't know who's going to be in those seats, and 2, we could have 5 people with the exact same seniority, and then what do you do then? So that's my take. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Bacon?
Thank you. So just to make sure I'm understanding the language, so it will be the clerk that calls the name to pick the seat that's in the hat?
So there will be, every seat will be numbered, and those numbers will
Right.
be in the hat, and the clerk
Right.
will have everyone draw a random number out of the hat. That becomes their seat.
So the clerk is going to determine the order of people drawing from the hat.
We don't have anything in here to say that, but since it says the drawing shall be run by the city clerk, then if it's not specifically named, it would be at their discretion, yes.
Right. So since it's a rule for the council, then I think we should have some language that says how the names, the order of the names
So
will
alphabetical?
be.
Alphabetical? Councillor Bacon, would that work?
Well, that's one way of doing it, you know, and we're sort of coming full circle in the discussion. In a sense, it doesn't really matter what the order is because the numbers are in there randomly anyway, I guess, right?
I think so. I
For
don't know
when
if it
we do
matters.
roll call votes, we go alphabetical, right?
Do you think it's
That
important
sounds
to
good.
name that in the rule, Councillor Bacon?
Well, I do because otherwise you're leaving a city council rule up to somebody who's not a member of the council.
Okay, so the seats shall be numbered and counselors will receive their seats alphabetically by lot or by lot alphabetically? Yes, Councillor Murphy-Romboletti?
Could do the drawing will be done alphabetically or will be run by the city clerk and done alphabetically.
Or the names will be drawn alphabetically.
With names drawn alphabetically.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay. Okay, can I have a motion to accept it with the amendments as written here?
So moved. Motion to accept the rule change with these amendments.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Roll
thank
call.
you. Oh, yes, sorry, thank
Thank
you for
you.
reminding me. Okay, Counselor Bacon,
Yes.
Counselor Murphy-Romboletti.
Yes.
Counselor McGrath-Smith, yes. Okay, so we will move that with our recommendation to the full council. Can I have a motion to take up item 3?
Motion to take up item 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This is from McGee from January 2023. Ordered that the City Council Rule 9H be amended and reworded in order to make the process of changing or updating an ordinance a smoother process. This has been tabled a number of times. After our last conversation, I will say it didn't get shorter, but I think it got clearer. But let's dive into it. So the revised 9H, as it currently stands on the left-hand column, and it says the ordinance committee shall first submit in writing, with the assistance of the administrative assistant, any proposed adoption, amendment, or repeal of an ordinance to the city solicitor for review and approval as to form and legal character. The city solicitor will then prepare a legal draft for presentation to the ordinance committee. This draft must be provided to the ordinance committee at least 48 hours prior to a scheduled subcommittee meeting where the ordinance is on the agenda. If the ordinance committee does not approve the draft, they shall submit any requested changes in writing to the city solicitor to facilitate revision. The revised draft must be completed and presented within 2 regularly scheduled subcommittee meetings. Revised drafts must be provided to the ordinance committee at least 48 hours before, prior to a scheduled subcommittee meeting where the ordinance is on the agenda. Once approved by the ordinance committee, the final draft shall be submitted to the city clerk by the city council assistant. The clerk will then distribute it to the city council at least 48 hours before the scheduled city council meeting where the ordinance is on the agenda. If a member or members of the ordinance committee wish to submit a minority report, they will provide a written version of the report to the city solicitor to be shared in legal form to the council at least 48 hours before the scheduled city council meeting where the ordinance is on the agenda. Thoughts under discussion? Counselor Bacon, is your hand up or is that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure. Okay, Counselor Bacon.
I took it down to put it up new. So this language is making it clear that in contradiction to our past practice, the law department will not be submitting any draft language to us ahead of time. And B, they will not be writing any language drafts for us per our verbal requests at the meetings. That's how I'm reading these words. Is that the intent?
Yes, the intent was to make, instead of a verbal, it being in writing, even if it's in bullet points, so that it's very clear what the ask is. That was the goal there.
Okay.
And also so that we wouldn't sometimes get language back doing things that we did not ask for.
Okay. And who is going to be the committee submitting it in writing? The chair, you as chair? Or how will that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that there are some options there. We could assign it specifically to the chair, or it could be similar to what we've done here, where the language is being drafted, or the bullet points could be agreed to by the committee before the motion to send it to legal.
Okay.
That's sort of what I was imagining.
And may I?
Yes, Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon, for asking that, because that was my first question. I think what's happened, at least with our committee, is that it's primarily been the chair who has sort of taken what we've done and sort of try to put it together for the committee to look at before we refer it to the full body, which I think could make a lot of sense. The other one idea I wanted to throw out, if it's important to the maker of the order, if that's like something like, not the actual maker of this order, I mean the maker of whatever order is being presented to ordinance, so that it's like, since they're the maker of the order, if it changes.
Instead of the chair, you're saying the maker of the order could draft the bullet points.
Right. I just think of the chair of ordinance, for example, already kind of has a lot, whoever the chair is, being the chair of ordinance is a lot. And then to add that, you just want to make sure that the chair does it or is able to do that. So it could be, I mean, I like the fact that it actually mentions our administrative assistant, because I think Jeffrey being at all of these meetings, it's able to help us remember what we talked about too, in an unbiased way. It's like a lot of different, so that's really helpful. So maybe I'm overthinking it, but could just be the chair. I don't know.
I have an additional question to pose to the body, just as we're working our way through some of the things in here. So 4 times it mentions 48 hours prior, this must be submitted. And, you know, of course, anytime you look at a rules, you think, oh, what happened to make that rule exist, right? And we have, you know, we're like clobbering it, right? It's 4 times it's mentioned in this. Is there a way to simplify that so it's mentioned once? Or is it so important that we like are really trying to hammer this clarity that we want? Because what we're saying is it's back and forth too. Like everyone's got to do this. So it's a question. I think it's clear. It is keeps naming it. So for simplicity's sake, do we have to do that? Okay. Councilor Jourdain, did I see your hand?
Yes, please. Does this embody the language you and I reviewed the other day?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And in terms of the 9J portion, we're going to delete the first 2 sentences, right, of 9J, and we're going to keep the last sentence, correct?
Eventually, but that has to be a different order.
Got it.
We'll have to look at that separately.
Okay.
But yes, that's the assumption, that we're kind of building in what's underlined there
Got it.
into 9H,
Okay.
just because the timing is a part of the process. And
Yeah.
so that's why we pulled the timing into that. But yeah, we still need to go back to that idea of making sure we're affirming that that concept is important. Of upon objection of any member, the matter will be tabled if we have not met that 48-hour important rule.
Thank you. I think you've done a nice job with this. I also, I am supportive of it. To answer your last point about the 48 hours, I think it's bears repetition in that between the open meeting law and all these other little things, it just keeps us all mindful of a specific time limit that, you know, people really need to receive these things in advance. So I like it the way you've written it. I thought you did a nice job with it.
Thank you. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. I wanted to chime in on the 48 hours, and I do think it's important to have it in all the steps of the process,
Okay.
so that things get a full review. And the only, I just wish the ordinance chair had taken a look at the top part, but I do feel pretty confident that because we have the meetings taped and we have our administrative assistant who does the minutes, that he can easily put language into bullets to send to legal so that they're in writing rather than verbal with the attorney taking notes. So I think it's workable.
Okay. Yeah, and the ordinance committee could decide, you know, to name it verbally and have the administrative assistant draft it in bullets. Like that
Right.
could be their choice. Or they could say,
Right.
we have such a specific vision for this, we are going to draft it right now, or ask one of our members to draft it. It would be up to them.
Right, right. It just would be good to have the chair weighing in, but not mandatory, I guess.
I see our city council administrative assistant, Jeffrey Anderson Burgos. Do you want to speak?
Yes, I wanted to note that Attorney Ball and I spoke a couple of meetings ago after an ordinance meeting, just to try and clean up the process of making sure forms are ready when they're being asked for. And we've begun a process of having me meet with them the day after ordinance meetings, so it's clear what is being looked for.
That's great. And I think that's an internal process that can really make sure that this process is happening, which I think is great. And thank you for taking the initiative to do that. I think that's really, thank you for doing that. Okay. Are we happy as is for us to bring this to council?
Did you want to put any language in there, though, about it being done by the chair, or like who it should be done by or drafted by?
I'm happy not naming it specifically and making it the will of the ordinance committee.
Okay.
But if we want to name
No.
it.
I just wanted to make sure. I don't feel strongly, either way.
Councilor Bacon, what do you think?
I'm fine with the language about writing to the attorney because I think it can be dealt with in committee. But I did want to go over the last part about the minority report.
Sure.
Because, yeah.
Does that get at it, the language there? Does that get at what you were hoping to see?
So at the last meeting, you had made a comment or somebody made a comment that it doesn't come up very much, but I can remember a couple of times where we had two sets of language side by side, and that is what arises out of a minority report. But it seems to me that if, say there is a 3-2 vote in a committee, it's saying, if I'm reading this language correctly, that the 1 or 2 people that didn't agree with the majority have to write up the minority report and give it to legal to get the legal form?
Yeah, the assumption was that in that case, for example, the one that we just looked at, the 2/3 being by present or by full body, full membership, that you might, the folks who want the minority report can contact the city solicitor and say, no, we want it to be of the members present. Please create that into legal form for us.
So because it is the work of a committee, to me, all actions coming out of the committee, whether they're majority or minority, should run through the chair to legal, because it's not 1 or 2 members of the council just sending something over to legal. It's in response to an order and discussion and debate in committee. So I would like it to say that if a member or members of ordinance committee wish to submit a minority report, the committee will provide a written version of the minority position to the city solicitor that will be put in legal form. Because only the ordinance committee can request the city solicitor to put something in legal form. I can't, and 2 people can't. Only the committee can. At least as I understand it.
I'm not sure. Let's look at what the original language was. Let me find that. So in the original, it says whether reported by a majority or a minority of said committee.
Right, but it's still coming as a committee report from the committee.
So would you want to
legal.
remove if a member or members and instead change that to if a
No, if a
minority
member /
of
members of
subcommittee?
the ordinance committee wish to submit a minority report, The committee will provide a written version of the minority report to the city solicitor to be shared in legal form. The same as if it's the majority, the committee will provide a written version.
So you want to just take out the word they and change it to the committee?
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to all present?
I think so. I mean,
The only thing I'm wondering about, Counselor Bacon, is if we take out they clearly refers back to member or members of the ordinance committee who wish to submit a minority report. The committee
Right. So
speaks for all members.
correct,
So I
but
think
it's
it's
not.
hard to say the committee. We'd have to then say, like in the original language, it just said whether a majority or a minority of said committee. So we could remove if a member or members of the ordinance committee wish to, and instead could put if a minority of said committee wishes to submit a minority report, they will provide.
No, because it has to come from the committee, and whether the majority agrees with the minority or not, they need to agree on what the words are.
So the committee has to take a vote on whether or not the minority can ask for. I thought the whole point was that they didn't have to get permission from the entire committee to get to ask
It's,
for it.
no, I'm not, I don't believe this language speaks to permission. It just speaks to who is sending over the information. And I believe it should be the same way for the minority as it is for the majority. That the information gets sent to legal. It's a procedural matter.
Yeah, no, I'm
It's
sorry. I'm
not-
just going back in and looking at the earlier language to see how we could copy it down.
so then it would just say,
Okay. I mean, if we're happy with the changing they to the committee, that's fine.
Right, because, so say there's a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote, and the minority says, I would like to do a minority report, and we need to have it put into legal form, then it would have to come from the committee, just like for the majority side. So I'm just looking to make the language the same.
okay. I think that makes sense. Sorry, it took me
Yeah,
a minute to kind
okay.
of wrap my head around it, but I think I get it now.
Yeah,
Counselor Devine?
thank you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, you're asking, I get the minority report, it's been around forever, but you're asking the law department to get a legal opinion on an ordinance and a minority report at least 48 hours before the scheduled city council meeting where the ordinance is on the agenda, which is usually the following Tuesday. So I think you're running into a problem, with all due respect to the law department, that they have a lot to do. And that's all I'm saying is, do you really want to do the 48 hours, especially if it's a 4-1 vote? I remember years ago, if there was a minority, that minority would just write up a report, didn't go to legal, and that minority would try to convince the full city council why they should not agree with the ordinance committee. So that's all I'm concerned about, is you're putting a lot of pressure on the law department to have things ready twice in 48 hours. So that's all.
Counselor Bacon?
Thank you. I guess my response would be that this does not happen frequently, but when it does, it's usually a pretty hot topic. And in order for the council to be able to fairly consider the options, they would need to have the legal form for both in front of them. So the law department doesn't have to offer a separate legal opinion. They just simply need to write the language 2 ways like they did for the past ordinance change that we recently made. Thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion to recommend this to the full body with that small amendment of changing the word "they" to the committee in the last paragraph?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that you've passed that with recommendation to the council. Can I have a motion to take up item 4?
Motion
So
to
moved.
take second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, I'm sorry, we have to go back and do a roll call vote
Oh,
for
Oh,
item
right.
3.
thank you.
Counselor Bacon?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy-Romboletti?
Yes.
Counselor McGrath-Smith, yes. Okay, sorry, a motion on item 4?
So moved. Motion
So
we
moved.
take
Second.
up item 4. Sorry, Linda.
Second. That's all right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This was from January 2022, Murphy-Romboletti and Jourdain. Order that the City Council adopt a rule to establish a 2-year legislative term. Any orders pending in committee or not acted on by the end of the legislative term must be refiled at the start of the subsequent legislative term. So if you turn on the third page in your packet, there's a suggested rule, and then it's my belief that we also have to, if we add a 4G, we would also need to change Rule 4D. So the new 4G would be, whereas the City Council shall operate on a 2-year legislative term commencing on the first day of January following each municipal election, any orders, resolutions, or matters referred to committee or otherwise pending before the City Council at the conclusion of a legislative term shall automatically expire and must be refiled at the start of the subsequent legislative term in order to receive further consideration. Exceptions for legal requirements. Notwithstanding the expiration rule, any matter subject to specific legal timelines or statutory requirements such as public hearings or processes mandated by law, e.g. ordinance adoption processes with those required notice periods, shall remain valid beyond the legislative term and be carried over into the subsequent term until such legal obligations are fulfilled or the matter is otherwise concluded. Continuation of orders by re-elected councilors. Re-elected councilors may request that any orders they have filed, which are pending in committee at the end of a legislative term, be continued into the subsequent term without refiling. Such a request must be communicated in writing to the chair of the respective subcommittee and the city council assistant no later than the last day of the legislative term. The city council assistant shall notify the city clerk of such continuations, and the matter shall remain pending into the subsequent term. Adding 4G would require us to change Rule 4D. D says all items previously tabled in committee shall be included on each subsequent committee agenda until voted out of committee by a majority thereof, or until removed from committee by a 2/3 vote of the full council. 4D would have to be changed to all items previously tabled in committee shall be included on each subsequent committee agenda until voted out of committee by a majority thereof, until removed from committee by a 2/3 vote of the full council, or until the end of the 2-year legislative term, subject to the process named in Rule 4G.
Thank you.
Counselor Devine and then Counselor Bacon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is about the continuation of orders by re-elected councilors, because there are committees that have an unbelievable amount of orders in them that have not been taken up, so I'm concerned about that. It does say that the re-elected councilors may request that any orders they have filed, which are pending in committees at the end of the legislative term, to continue into the subsequent term without refiling, and that you're supposed to request that in writing to the chair of the respective subcommittee. Again, you may not know who that chair is going to be.
So the reason why it says that it can be no later than the last day of the legislative term is the concept that it is being done by the current chair, not the next chair, to avoid that issue.
Because it does say such request must be communicated in writing to the chair of the respective subcommittee and the city council assistant no later than the last day of the legislative term. So if the legislative term ends on December 31st, the person has to get that into the chair, even though that person may not be the chair, come January. Is that correct?
Yes, they would communicate it to the city council assistant and to the chair, so the knowledge
Okay.
can be transferred.
All right, thanks.
Counselor Bacon?
Thank you. I like this language as it is. And I would only note that to facilitate the other change, if that order could be filed before the next city council meeting, so that then we'd have the order to fix 4D.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually thought that it might be possible for us to take it up underneath the current order, because the order would require us to change that rule. So I didn't think that we were going to have a different order to change Rule 4D, because we would have to change it in order to comply with this order.
Well, it perhaps could be a debatable matter, but I think it's kind of like 9J.
Okay. Well, that does change things, because if the committee wants us to only look at 4G, adding 4G, then we would need to be careful, because if we've voted on it without taking up this next one for changing 4D, we'd have two rules in conflict with each other.
Could we?
Right, so the reason that I was making the point the way I was is that if before the next city council meeting, the order is filed to change 4D in anticipation that the council will like this language in 4G, that order could be filed, and then the rules would be in agreement before it needed to take effect.
And we would suspend the rules to take them as a package and
We
take
could.
final action
We
without
could.
sending to committee.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sure. I mean, if that's the will of the committee, I'm more than happy to do that.
I think that would work well, but that's my perspective.
Thank you. Okay, Counselor Jourdain, and then City Solicitor Bissonnette.
Yeah, I just wanted to again compliment the committee on this. I think in particular the chair, you did a nice job with this. I support also the change to the 4D and this language, so thank you for your work on this.
Thank you. Counselor City Solicitor Bissonnette. A different kind of counselor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to point out, I missed it when we talked about this. In the first line in 4G, the start of the municipal year, according to both state law and the charter, is the first Monday of January.
Oh,
So if you could make that
Yes.
that correction, Jeffrey, please.
Yes. Okay, so amending
Thank
that
you.
to change day to Monday. Thank you.
And the other point I would make is fortunately, none of this would really start till the end of 2025 with the
right.
new legislative term in January. So we've got plenty of time to coordinate the terms in 4D. But congrats, this will make things a lot easier, I think, for managing the workload. So good work.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So I hear we might want to take a motion to accept the suggested rule change or addition for 4G, just changing day to Monday.
I'll make a motion that we recommend adoption of Rule 4G with the amendment of first Monday of January.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? City Solicitor Bissonnette, is your hand up still, or is that a new hand?
No, unfortunately, that's an old hand.
Okay. You are an old hand. Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Roll call.
Yes. Okay, roll call. Counselor Bacon?
Yes,
Counselor Murphy-Romboletti?
Yes.
Counselor McGrath-Smith, yes. Okay, and I will file that 4D change as a separate order.
You can put me on that. if you'd
Okay.
like.
Great. You can put all of us on it if
Yeah.
you like.
Yeah, look at us collaborating, just warming my little heart. Okay, can I have a motion to take up item 5?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Item 5, 924 Murphy-Romboletti, order that the city council amend its rules to identify which committees certain licenses should be sent to in an effort to ensure consistency and clarity. And I'll defer to the maker of the order to explain the context of this.
Sure, thank you. This is something that has been suggested to me multiple times, but it's also something that I also thought of when I was when I worked in the city, at City Hall, in planning and economic development, because sometimes, especially now that I'm president, like I hear someone make a motion, I think I accidentally almost referred something to public safety instead of public service. I saw that happen with someone's special permit like 10 years ago. It got sent to public safety when it should have gone to DGR. And it probably wasn't even intentional, but like, I don't know. I've seen appointments go to DGR instead of the public safety committee or public service committee. So I guess, and I feel like there's like some things in the rules that sort of try to establish what committees do what, but I thought it might just be good for the sake of like consistency if we just sort of outlined it a little clearer in the rules, especially for new counselors, having something to look at and be like, oh, okay, if it's a, junkyard license, it goes wherever. But I recognize that we're probably not going to make a decision on this tonight. I want to just start the conversation because I think it could just be helpful for everyone. And so we have some more clarity. Not that folks don't know. I don't know. It's also just for transparency for the public. When someone applies and they're like, oh, I have to submit a home occupation permit, I don't even know what that process looks like. They could look at maybe the rules and they say, this is where it should go. So that's really just the intent behind it. Not to make things more complicated, but hopefully clear things up.
Jeffrey, can you prep a way of sharing the rules section there where it names this different special permits? Because there are a number of them mentioned in the last section there before MISC.
Licenses and special permits are technically two different things, right?
So that's another question too, right? Because it does name licenses, and I know we've mentioned special permits here, but you're right that the order does just say licenses. Did you also want to take up special permits or just specifically licenses?
I kind of just probably meant licenses and special permits, probably. I probably
jazz hands on that one.
I might have submitted this at like 11:45 before, and I didn't want to forget. But yeah, I mean, I guess if it has to get city council approval from someone, then, or from some department, I recognize that like, it could just be clarifying. There's the section that talks about the subcommittees and what they do. It could just be clarifying those sections a little bit more.
And did you want us to take up special permits too? Because if so, you could put in a companion order, and then next time when we take it up in the next meeting, we could have both ready to go. Like we could pull out everything that's in there about special permits, everything there about licenses.
Okay.
And we can also see, are there licenses and special permits that are not currently named that need to be named? And we could take up both.
Okay. I can file an order.
Jeffrey, your hand's raised.
Yeah, just a couple of quick notes. So the description for DGR says that it shall have jurisdiction over all council-issued special permits except for home occupation and marijuana establishments, which are generally been taken up by ordinance. On the licenses topic, though, I've observed that it tends to be based on the recollection of whoever makes the motion. I've seen street vendor licenses go to ordinance, finance, or DGR. I've seen secondhand sometimes go to finance, sometimes to ordinance. I've seen junk dealers go to finance or DGR. So yeah, sometimes it just tends to be on whoever makes the motion and what they recall it went to before.
Okay, so I'm not crazy.
I mean,
No, I am.
this topic, maybe not.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Okay, do I also, oh, Counselor Bacon, did you have your hand up or no?
I did, but I'm also.
Okay. Okay, so would it make sense for you to file a companion order around special permits, and then next meeting when we meet, we'll take up both?
Yeah, that's fine.
And I can-
And then that way I can have some time to
Yeah.
do a little research with Jeffrey, maybe.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Does anyone else want to weigh in just on sort of what we should be prepping for that?
Maybe just a list of what special permits we have and where we're going now, and then all the different types of licenses. Because obviously it ranges from really whatever, like pool hall license to the licenses we just approved for the contracts at, you know, Roberts Field
Right.
or McKenzie
Yep.
or any of these other ones, you know, so it's quite a wide range.
Yep. All right, cool. I'll talk to Jeffrey too.
Okay, cool. So,
Motion to table, please.
Second.
any further discussion? Okay, Counselor Bacon?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy-Rumble?
You're not really like, but yes.
I don't have to do roll call for table?
Right, but it's
I
okay.
finally remembered to do the roll call
No, I
and I was
know.
wrong.
And we love
It
that.
won't
for
hurt
you.
One
anything.
time I could.
Yeah, but
All
I
in
didn't
favor?
want to.
I
I,
didn't want
I
to
was
ruin
not
your thunder.
satisfied.
You look
I
so
was
proud of yourself.
Proud of myself.
I know.
I finally got it. Okay.
I'll make a motion to take up items 6 and 7 as a
Yes.
package.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 This was Divine ordered that Rule 9P be amended so that items not acted on in committee jackets become deemed tabled after 45 business days instead of just 45 days. And then item 7 was a response. Assistant City Solicitor Jane Mentalewski was a legal opinion concerning Rule 9P. Counselor Divine, as the maker of the order, do you want to start us off? Counselor Devine, I see your hand up. Do you want to start?
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, there you are.
Thank you. I filed an order, I want to say, back in June, the first week in June, and it's never been taken up because we went on recess. So that 45 days, my order was never even spoken about, so, or passed to a committee or anything like that. So that's why I'm asking for the 45 business days to give people the opportunity to file an order, and if, God forbid, we go on recess, that it at least will be taken up after recess. And that was my only reason for doing this. Because like I said, I didn't even get a chance to talk about it.
Thank you. All right, Counselor Murphy-Romboletti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I honestly think in my first term, I was the one who presented this rule of 45 days. And I think it was just more of an effort to make sure that things were not sort of like waiting in the jacket for too long, or that we were trying to give a lot of everything a chance to be brought up. So business days totally make sense. I'm also not married to 45 days. Like it could be 60 or 90. I just think it's like, just the intent of it was to just kind of keep things from, I mean, we all file so many orders that it is easy for any one committee to just not have the time or the ability or the information to take something up. It was just more about making sure that things weren't being forgotten. So that was the intent of it. So like, I'm also open to like, if you want to just change that from 45 to a higher number, especially given the summer recess. I mean,
Yeah, I do wonder if it makes sense to either put in some sort of caveat for the summer recess or to extend the number of days. Counselor Bacon?
Thank you. I find the change as recommended to be reasonable. And I would note that if there's an urgent matter, even though the council is on recess, committees can meet in the summer. So I would offer a motion that we adopt that order as recommended by the maker.
so moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Yes. Got it.
You're right.
Okay. Hold
I just
on.
wanted to, I
yes,
just wanted
Councilor
to
Devine.
thank you for taking that up. I appreciate it.
Yes, of course. And I think if someone wants to put in another order looking at, potentially extending the time and having that conversation, I think the committee's open to it. Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Bacon?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy-Romboletti?
Yes.
McGrath Smith? Yes. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Can I say
Aye.
that? Or do I have to do a
Aye.
roll call vote for adjourning?
Oh, I think you're good.
Okay.
I don't know. Oh, wait. For adjourning, do a roll call.
Okay, Counselor Bacon.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy-Romboletti.
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith. Yes. All right, thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.